Okay, so my talk is actually looking at the question of the context of rich media in terms of television. And this really comes out of 11 years of working in the field of interactive narrative design with the CFC Media Lab and my own consulting and ongoing engagement online as an avid player of other people's content and rich media. And so this sort of context and sort of first generative idea had me thinking about the question, a kind of a meta question that's actually been sort of part of my thinking now for quite some time. And this is really the idea in the world of online engagement that I would argue underlies a lot of the viral and now spreadable media that basically, Paul, you can sort of fix this here. We'll put it on the floor. Yeah, you put it down there. Okay, that's fine. That's my timer. So really this sort of question of, in the context of viral media and spreadable media, as recently published by Henry Jenkins and others, why do people share? When people are actually sharing online, which is what we really hope that people are going to do with the rich media that we build around specific projects, be they films or TV shows or sort of online TV movies, we sort of think about this in the context of why do people share and what does it mean to share? And this is a really important question when we think about our fans as our evangelists, as our potentially participants and sometimes co-collaborators. And that question of why to me is hugely important. So I just want to confess as an upfront confession, I'm a digital squirrel. I have OAD and OSD, which I would define as obsessive archiving disorder and obsessive sharing disorder. And to me, this is part of a pattern of behavior that fits into these like larger patterns of what we can see people doing online all the time. And this then led me to the question of why do I do what I do, in fact, which led me to the micro idea. And the micro idea actually, it springs out of a very specific blog post taken up by someone at the time at bigspaceship.com. Ivan Asquith, who is now the head of digital media at Lucasfilms, and he actually did his PhD at MIT with Henry Jenkins. And he put up a blog post in January 2010 as a real challenge to both the digital creative and the marketing industries to think differently about viral content. And he said, this is really the wrong metaphor. We don't want to spread viruses to our friends. In fact, that's usually not what we want to do. We're actually talking about the fact that we're sharing. And when we share something, we're actually giving. And so this notion of the economy of the gift, I think, is actually hugely important because it comes back to this question of human motivation and human behavior, what we can learn from it, and how we can actually build in order to impel the kind of behavior that we want. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with this, Mad Men. And this is the Mad Men avatar generator. I started thinking about, for myself in the context of this talk, when have I shared, what has been the motivator, and how far have I spread it, in fact? And I thought, I've actually used this a ton of times. I actually use it to generate avatars for talks, so they're going into talks, they exist on SlideShare, but I've often, sort of played around with it and put up new avatars on my Facebook page, and of course, this is promotional branding that's going out there. In another context, this might be a little less familiar. This is part of the really, really big immersive world that was created for the Hunger Games on Facebook and on sort of multiple other sites. And as part of this world and the interaction, you actually created your own identity pass. And you were basically sort of able to customize it to a certain degree. I made multiples of these, in fact. And both are points of engagement that really create a place for you in the story world. Most important, I think this is a hugely important sort of underlying notion here, is that in both of these instances, the designers have in fact created a place for you in the story world that you can personalize to varying degrees, and it actually gives you a kind of proxy role that you can then share with your friends. Two examples of recent instances where I think there was a kind of missed opportunity, the online recruitment test that was created for the film Prometheus, where you could actually sort of basically run a series of tests to see if you were sort of a prospective recruit for their next missions. They missed the opportunity of being able to give you a customizable ID sort of recruitment card. That would have been genius, because I would have shared that for days. A slightly different strategy, invite. Invite your fans to create, and I think we've sort of been hearing this theme coming up over the course of the day, but thinking about inviting your fans to create meaningful content, not just any content, but really meaningful content. So Philips and RSA, Ridley Scott Associates, partnered on a very intensive, I think it almost ran for about 7-8 months, the Parallel Lines contest. And this was actually, it was an invitation to filmmakers across the world to create a short film. The constraint was that it had to have the same 5 lines of dialogue. They put up, over a period of about 8 days, 5 films that had been created in-house by RSA. So sort of beautifully speaking to the point earlier this morning, they defined the model of what it is that they were asking fans to engage in, or really a sort of a world community. And then what they also did, which was really genius, was they gave a meaningful reward. You know, and in this instance, it's not Oprah, everybody gets a car. It's actually, your film is potentially going to be viewed by Ridley Scott. How bonus is that? And of course, there's a huge amount of traction around this, and really extraordinarily well-crafted videos that were submitted. You might know this website, this sort of very, very clever website, takethislollipop.com, which you sign in through Facebook, and then it starts pulling your content from Facebook into the context of what is this sort of very threatening hacker figure who is basically data mining your page. And then I won't tell you the ending because it's actually just worth going to look at. But what it does is it sort of leverages that social content that people are already often sort of playing on in terms of the second screen and giving it more meaning. And I think that in this context, we've barely scratched the surface of what potentially could be done in this space. And what I'd like to then flag is sort of thinking about a virtuous circle of invite, engage, make, share, and integrate content back into the show and or the story world, which was another point that's been coming up today as well. And I think thinking about this is a really kind of structured and defined process that is constantly recognizing, giving value back to the audience, and also acknowledging the value of what's been created by the audience is actually huge. And that takes me to just 2 very short examples that I want to just mention. This was this genius viral campaign by, it was actually a Swedish broadcast network. Does anybody know this? The NTAC Hero campaign, you know this, Evan? This was genius. You upload a picture of yourself, either sort of webcam snap or a picture. Then you get this 30-second, minute-long video in which there's a kind of a broadcast that's going out across the globe. People are excited, stopping traffic, people are stopping what they're doing, and then you have a press conference and they unveil the world's new hero, the hero of the world, and it's you. Oh my God, that was really exciting. I hate to say it, I did this at like 6:40 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, oh man, my day. Like, I have been thanked. And I think that's incredibly important. And the second example I just want to briefly touch on in this space is actually a recent conversation with Jill Golick for a very small case study. She knows who all of the fans are on her Facebook page. She's looked at their pages. She's commented on their pages. She's engaged with them. She's actually, in the context of like her own web pages for Ruby Sky, she cross-posts video. She understands how to drive traffic by creating an added layer of audience and fan engagement that's actually giving back. And that isn't just always pushing content out to them, but is actually pushing their content. And I think that's also a hugely important insight. These were some of the stats. This is actually online somewhere. It was huge, absolutely huge. 30 million unique viewers worldwide. Significant. So ending, just very quickly, I always come back to the idea of do more with less, design something beautiful, make it really clear, provide constraints. Today, it has to be socially enabled, mobile friendly, sometimes viral. I don't like that metaphor. Should be spreadable and should give reasons to do and reasons to share. And I think when I think back on everything that I've sort of gotten engaged with and shared, it's often in this context, and it's often something really, really simple. So I'm going to end there. Thank you.